You know that frustrating feeling, right? You're scrolling through your phone, maybe trying to edit a photo, check an important email, whatever. And it feels like just yesterday it was like lightning fast.
Yeah, totally.
But then almost overnight it starts to lag. Apps crash for no reason, the battery drains way faster than it used to, and well, before you can even really think about getting it fixed, the company announces a brand new shiny model.
Right. And suddenly yours feels ancient.
Exactly. Or maybe you've tried to fix a gadget you really like, only to find out it's designed in this way glued shut. Maybe it has weird proprietary screws or parts you just can't replace.
Uh-huh.
So repair seems impossible, basically forcing you back into buying new. And oh, don't even get me started on buying a brand new device. You open the box and there's no charger.
Ah, yes. The missing charger.
So you have to shell out even more cash just to, power the thing up.
It really is more than just a passing annoyance, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
These kinds of experiences, they often feel less like random tech hiccups,
Yeah.
and more like deliberate hurdles,
Yeah.
like they're put right in our path by the companies making the devices.
Exactly. It's that feeling, that nagging sense that our tech isn't really built to last, or maybe even not built to serve us for as long as it could. And that's precisely what we're plunging into today on the deep dive.
Okay.
We're talking about something called planned obsolescence. It's basically a business strategy where products are intentionally designed to become obsolete or, well, non-functional after a certain time. Or, and this is maybe even more subtle, they're designed to be perceived as obsolete.
Right, making you want to replace something that still works perfectly fine.
Exactly. It's a fascinating and honestly sometimes a pretty infuriating topic.
Well, our guide for this particular deep dive is a really insightful systematic review. It came out in February 2024, titled A Systematic Review of the Effects of Planned Obsolescence in the Consumer Electronics Industry, a focus on American consumerism by Penelope Ramdayal. And this isn't just, one single study. It's a huge piece of research. It synthesizes a vast amount of existing academic work, news articles, data,
Hmm.
all of it. It gives us this really comprehensive, up-to-date look at planned obsolescence, all its different faces, and the huge impact it has.
So, our mission today really is to unpack all those layers of planned obsolescence. Let's peel back the marketing gloss, see what's actually going on underneath.
Mm.
We're going to trace its history because, believe it or not, this has surprisingly old roots. It's not a new thing. Then we'll dissect the impacts, economic, social, environmental, which, trust me, go way beyond just your wallet.
Right.
And finally, and this is crucial, we'll explore what kind of infrastructure, what kind of regulations might be needed to move towards a more sustainable future, one where our devices actually serve us longer. So get ready for some aha moments about the gadgets you use every single day.
Sounds good. Where do we start?
Okay, let's start by really unpacking this core concept, planned obsolescence. What exactly are we talking about when we use that term? Why is it so important to define it clearly right at the outset?
Well, at its heart, planned obsolescence, or PO as it's often called, is defined pretty clearly as a business strategy in which the obsolescence, the process of becoming obsolete
Yeah.
of a product, is planned and built into it from its conception by the manufacturer.
Okay, planned and built in from conception.
Exactly. That definition is from Kramer back in 2012, and is vital because it highlights something crucial. This is not an accident. It's not just a byproduct of fast innovation or a random manufacturing flaw.
It's deliberate.
It's a deliberate strategic design choice.
Okay.
From the moment a product is conceived, on the drawing board, its eventual end of life, or at least its perceived end of life, is intentionally programmed in by the company. It's baked into the business model.
So basically, it's not a bug, it's a feature, a strategic choice. That's a pretty stark claim, isn't it? Does that mean every single time a phone slows down or a printer just gives up the ghost? It's definitely by design.
Well, not every single time, perhaps. Things do genuinely break or get surpassed by truly better technology sometimes, but the strategy exists.
Right. And this whole idea, designing things to be thrown away or replaced, it actually has a surprisingly deep history, doesn't it? It's not just about iPhones and laptops.
Oh, absolutely not. It's far from modern. The systematic review we're looking at points out that this concept really started taking root even before World War II. American businesses, looking to stimulate a booming economy, they started embracing what they called, rather nicely, actually creative waste.
Creative waste. That sounds interesting.
It does, doesn't it? Almost artistic. But it was essentially the idea that throwing things away and then buying new ones could actually fuel a strong economy.
Yeah.
It creates constant demand, keeps factories running, and that notion, kind of ironically, perfectly, describes our modern relationship with so many products.
It's like the blueprint for today's consumerism.
Pretty much. A
Yeah.
deep-seated philosophy that's still guiding a lot of industry practices.
That's a powerful and, yeah, slightly unsettling idea. Creative waste,
Yeah.
valuing disposability. But the thinking behind it, the driving philosophy was much more direct, wasn't it? There's a quote from Charles Kettering, General Motors general director, way back in 1929 that just lays it all out.
Oh, absolutely. Kettering, who was a huge figure in industry then, he said, and I quote, "If everyone was satisfied, no one would buy the new thing because no one would want it."
Wow. Straight up.
Yeah, that quote really is the philosophical bedrock of planned obsolescence. It directly links consumer dissatisfaction, or at least the lack of permanent satisfaction, to continuous sales and economic growth.
So a perfect product that lasts forever is bad for business.
According to that logic, yes. It suggests that a truly durable, universally satisfying product would actually hurt business growth. The goal shifts, you see. It's less about making the best, longest-lasting product and more about creating this unending desire for the next new thing. It's about constant renewal, constant replacement.
And this connects to a bigger economic idea we hear about sometimes, Schumpeter's theory of creative destruction. Now, on the surface, that sounds kind of positive, like a natural engine of progress, but what does it really mean here?
Yeah, it does connect. Joseph Schumpeter, he was an Austrian economist, he argued that economic development isn't this smooth, straight line. Instead, it's dynamic, it's inherently disruptive, and it's driven by innovation.
Okay.
And this innovation, he said, inherently destroys old structures and creates new ones. It makes existing products, technologies, even business models obsolete, and replaces them with something supposedly better.
Right, and this is often framed as the good side of capitalism, isn't it? Progress, pushing forward, the new replacing the old.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Keeble mentioned that in 2013. It's presented as focusing on progress, pushing boundaries, always bringing in the new. It's seen as the engine that stops stagnation and drives real advancement.
So, on one hand, it sounds like this exciting, maybe even necessary force, out with the old, in with the better, faster, stronger. And the consumer electronics industry, I mean, and it definitely seems to rely heavily on this idea, right? Tech changes so fast.
Oh, absolutely. The industry thrives on that constant cycle of perceived upgrades. New chips, better cameras, faster speeds. It seems natural that older devices fall behind.
There's a but.
There's always a but.
Yeah.
Keeble, in that same 2013 work, immediately pivots. He states that since capitalism and the birth of modernistic purchasing, there's a darker side to obsolescence. And this is where the real tension lies, isn't it? This sets up the whole issue we're diving into.
Right. We need to distinguish between genuine technological progress, which is often great, and something more manufactured.
Precisely. Where obsolescence isn't just a byproduct of innovation, but an intended outcome, a core business strategy. And that's where it gets problematic.
Okay, so we've established planned obsolescence isn't an accident, it's a strategy. But you mentioned it's not just one thing. It's like an umbrella term covering different ways products become obsolete.
That's absolutely right.
And this is where it gets really interesting because it's not always about stuff physically breaking down. Sometimes it's about messing with our heads or desires.
Exactly. When we talk about PO, we're actually talking about several distinct mechanisms. Different ways a product ends up seeming irrelevant or unusable, either in reality or just in the consumer's mind. Understanding these different types, it helps us see the full picture of how companies keep that consumption cycle going.
All right, let's dive into these types then. First up, style obsolescence or SO. What's that about? Is it just fashion?
Well, it's closely related to fashion, yes. Style obsolescence is when a product becomes unwanted or feels less valuable, simply because trends change, aesthetics shift. Think about how much marketing and advertising influence this, especially in consumer electronics. Companies actively shape these trends to maximize their profits. Venkatesh and Mimber talked about this back in '08. It's why last year's phone model certainly looks dated, even if it works perfectly fine.
Right, the design changes just enough. A new camera layout, different edges, a new color.
Exactly. Those little aesthetic tweaks scream old model the second the new one drops. It's about engineering dissatisfaction with what you already own. Not because it's broken, but because it's no longer the in thing. It's purely psychological.
Yes. The dreaded last season's tech. It works fine, but suddenly you feel, yeah, a bit out of step. Okay, then there's functional obsolescence, FO. This sounds more, well, functional and maybe a bit more insidious.
It often is, yeah. Functional obsolescence, according to Valentin Group in 2020, occurs when an asset becomes less useful or desirable due to an outdated design that can't easily be updated or changed.
Okay, so how does that show up in practice?
This is where those deliberate design choices really hit home. Think about non-replaceable parts. That glued-in smartphone battery we mentioned, that's a classic example.
Right, impossible to replace yourself.
Or laptops with RAM and storage soldered directly onto the motherboard, no upgrades possible. Or products using weird screws you can't find a driver for. Or fragile plastic clips designed to snap if you try to open the case.
So it's built not to be fixed.
Essentially, yes.
Hmm.
It creates a situation where consumers have to replace the whole device instead of repairing or upgrading it. Often because the cost or the sheer difficulty of the repair makes buying new the only practical or sometimes the only possible option.
Okay, that definitely forces your hand. What about technical obsolescence, TO? Is that just technology moving forward naturally, or is there a planned part there too?
That's a great distinction, because technical obsolescence can be both. Bellal described it in 2020 as when a challenger unit displaying the same functionalities but with higher performance metrics makes an older product obsolete.
Okay.
Now, some of this is unplanned TO. That's the natural, often beneficial progress of tech, like older phones simply not supporting 5G network speeds,
Yeah.
or old game consoles not working well with new HD TVs. That's just technology genuinely moving on.
But you said it can be planned too. How does that work? It seems harder to pin down.
It can be trickier to spot, yes. But planned TO happens when manufacturers, say, release software updates that are optimized primarily for their newest models. And then they slowly phase out support, or maybe the updates just don't run as well on older models.
Ah, so the new OS update makes my perfectly good older phone suddenly feel sluggish.
Exactly. Or it drains the battery faster, or makes apps crash more. Even though the older hardware might technically have been capable of running previous software just fine, it's a subtle nudge towards buying the new model.
Right. Your device could keep going, but the software environment makes it painful.
Precisely. It feels like it's dying, but really its capabilities are being artificially limited by lack of optimized support.
Okay, that's sneaky. Now, perceived obsolescence, PRO, this sounds like it overlaps a bit with style obsolescence, more about mindset.
Yes, very much so. Perceived obsolescence is the consumer's belief that a product is no longer useful or desirable or just not good enough anymore, even if it functions perfectly well. Werner noted this in 2022.
So it works, but I feel like I need a new one.
Exactly. And it's heavily shaped by aggressive marketing and advertising. The goal is to win new customers or push existing ones to upgrade by creating this constant desire for the latest and greatest.
It's not about broken features, it's about feeling left behind.
Precisely. It's about making you feel that what you have is simply not the best anymore. Creating that desire for the new, maybe not because it offers a massive functional leap that really benefits you, but just because it's presented as more desirable, more aspirational, the must-have item.
That's tapping into status anxiety, fear of missing out.
Absolutely. It's Consumer Psychology 101.
Okay. And just quickly, for completeness, there's also unplanned obsolescence, which is different from all this deliberate stuff.
Correct. Unplanned obsolescence, UP, that's just when something breaks due to an unforeseen issue.
Yeah.
A manufacturing error, a random component failure that wasn't designed in.
Like a genuine defect.
Exactly. And that's typically covered by warranty. It's an accident, not a strategy. It's the kind of failure that ideally gets fixed or replaced under warranty, not used as an excuse to force an upgrade.
Okay, that clarifies the different types. Now, speaking of deliberate design, this is where it gets really wild. Let's dive into a historical case study that just perfectly illustrates planned obsolescence in its most blatant form, the Phoebus Cartel. Tell us about this great light bulb conspiracy.
Ugh. The Phoebus Cartel. Yes, this is a truly classic, almost legendary example, and frankly, pretty shocking when you dig into it. Back in December 1924, the major light bulb producers of the time, we're talking Philips, General Electric, Osram, Compagnie-Lamp, the big players,
Giants.
the giants, they formed this cartel, the Phoebus Cartel, and their explicit, documented goal was to artificially limit the lifespan of their light bulbs.
Wait, limit, not extend.
Limit, actively shorten how long they lasted. This was directly counteracting the natural longevity that incandescent bulbs could actually achieve. Before the cartel, bulbs were often designed to last much, much longer.
That's incredible. It completely flips the script on innovation always meaning better and longer lasting. Edison's original bulbs lasted ages.
Exactly. Some early bulbs lasted thousands, even tens of thousands of
Oh,
hours.
yeah.
But the cartel changed the game. They took the 1924 market standard, which was around 2,500 burning hours for a bulb,
Okay.
and through a system of fines, get this, fines for companies whose bulbs lasted too long.
You got fined if your product was too good.
Precisely. They deliberately reduced that lifespan down to just 1,000 hours by 1940, less than half the previous standard, and way below what the technology was capable of. They even had a common lab to test bulbs from all members, specifically to enforce this shorter lifespan.
That is just brazen. Why? What was the logic? It sounds terrible for consumers.
Terrible for consumers, fantastic for profits. The rationale was purely economic.
Hmm.
By shortening the lifespan, they achieved two key things.
Okay.
First, they could potentially reduce the cost per bulb by using cheaper materials, less durable filaments, better profit margins per unit. Second, and this was the big one, it created guaranteed continuous demand.
Ah, people had to buy bulbs more often.
Exactly. Instead of a one-time purchase of a long-lasting product, you have a steady, predictable stream of revenue from replacements. It's a very clear early blueprint for the strategies we see today in electronics. Profit-driving decisions over quality and durability.
It basically reprogrammed what people expected from a product.
It really did. It shifted expectations away from longevity towards constant replacement. It's fascinating and yet chilling to see this playbook laid out almost a century ago.
It certainly challenges that idea of innovation for the good of all.
Absolutely. As Keeble noted, obsolescence can be seen as the good side of capitalism, focusing on the new, the future. But, he says, there is a darker side. The Phoebus cartel is maybe the starkest illustration of that darker side imaginable. It wasn't just business. It was weaponizing consumer psychology.
Okay, moving from the product design itself, let's broaden out to the economic consequences. Planned obsolescence seems like this tightrope walk credited with driving growth, but also causing some really negative outcomes, especially for people's wallets and society.
It's definitely a complex picture. Modern consumerism, often fueled by things like planned obsolescence, has undeniably driven massive global economic growth. You can't ignore the initial positives that were often highlighted.
Like what? What were the perceived benefits?
Well, increased economic output, obviously. Huge job creation, manufacturing, marketing, retail, the whole chain. Significant wealth generation for companies and investors. And for some parts of society, it definitely led to an improved quality of life, more access to a wider variety of goods and services. History Crunch outlines some of this.
So, coming out of things like the Great Depression, this looked like a solution.
Exactly. Consumerism, spurred by strategies like PO, was seen by some as a way to stimulate activity, get economies moving again. It looked like a win-win. Constant consumption leading to prosperity.
On the surface, maybe. But we know there's that darker side, especially for individuals. How did this push for constant buying affect consumer debt?
Massively. The review points out that planned obsolescence, by constantly encouraging, sometimes even forcing, new purchases, really fueled the rise of widespread credit systems. Buy now, pay later, installment plans.
Keeping up with the Joneses on credit.
Pretty much. And this led to huge increases in consumer debt. The review gives a really striking example from Australia. In 1939, their national consumer debt was AU $39 million. Okay. Okay. Just 2 years after WWII, it doubled, people buying stuff to rebuild. But then by 1960, it exploded by a factor of 25, hitting over AU $1 billion.
Wow, a 25-fold increase in just over a decade.
Yeah.
Eh.
It shows how fast personal debt can climb when continuous purchasing is the norm. And think about today, credit is even more available, more integrated into everything we buy.
So we're still dealing with that legacy, maybe even amplified, lots of households swimming in debt.
Mhm.
And it seems like while everyone's encouraged to buy, not everyone can actually afford it. What's the impact on low-income consumers specifically?
Yeah, this is a really critical point. Low-income individuals get hit disproportionately hard. They often get stuck in this difficult loop, as the Ramdayal review puts it, purchasing not just because they want the new thing, but out of sheer necessity.
Necessity. How so?
Well, think about the poverty rate. In the U.S. in 2022, it was 11.5%. That's nearly 38 million people living in poverty, according to Schreider's 2023 report. These are families on incredibly tight budgets.
Right, every dollar counts.
And today, having working up-to-date technology isn't really a luxury anymore, is it? Especially after the pandemic pushed so much online.
No, definitely not. Work, school, healthcare, so much relies on it.
Exactly. The modern workplace, remote jobs, Online learning for kids, telehealth appointments, even accessing government services often requires the latest operating systems or device capabilities.
So older devices might literally lock you out of essential services.
They can, yeah. Which means low-income households find it incredibly difficult to just stick with older models, especially when those models are designed to be non-repairable or have non-replaceable parts. When a critical device breaks, they're forced to buy new or pay for expensive manufacturer repairs, even if they absolutely cannot afford it.
That's a terrible choice to have to make.
It is. It drains their limited funds, forcing agonizing decisions between, say, fixing the tablet the kids need for school versus paying the heating bill. It reduces their quality of life and, as Ecosphere noted, systematically widens the gap between social classes. It's a cycle of forced consumption that traps vulnerable people.
It's more than just an inconvenience then. It's a real economic burden, a systemic disadvantage, weaponizing tech against the poor.
That's a stark way to put it, but yeah.
Yeah.
The economic impact hits hardest at the bottom, making upgrading a source of huge stress, not excitement.
Okay, so beyond individual debt and the impact on low-income folks, there's another economic casualty here, the repair industry. It feels like the whole system is stacked against repairs.
It really does feel that way. The consumer electronics industry, as we mentioned, operates largely as an oligopoly. A few big players dominate and set the standards.
Yeah.
And they've put specific strategies into practice pretty much across the board, not to make things last longer, but to keep profits high and ensure we keep buying new devices.
Suppose
Often, yeah, at the direct expense of repairability.
What are some of those strategies? Because I've definitely felt that frustration trying to fix something simple, like a battery, and just hitting a brick wall.
Oh, yeah. The review highlights several key tactics. We've talked about non-replaceable parts, glued-in batteries, soldered RAM, or storage, making component swaps difficult or impossible.
Uh-huh.
Then there are non-repairable device bodies. Unibody designs sealed with strong glues or weird fasteners, so just opening the device risks breaking it.
Okay.
But a really big one now is parts pairing technology. This is quite sophisticated, actually.
Parts pairing. What's that?
Okay, so specific components inside your device, say the screen, the camera, the battery, they have unique serial numbers.
Mm-hmm.
These are cryptographically linked to the device's main software, often through tiny authentication chips on the parts themselves.
Like a digital lock and key.
Exactly, a digital handshake.
Yeah.
If that handshake fails, maybe because you installed a perfectly good aftermarket screen, or even a genuine Apple screen taken from another iPhone, the device's software is designed to reject it.
Reject it how?
Well, the part might not work at all. Or, more subtly, you might lose key functionality. Replace an iPhone screen yourself, even with a genuine one, and you might lose Face ID or True Tone display features. Replace a battery, and you might lose the battery health readings. Unless the part is remotely paired or authorized using the original manufacturer's proprietary software and tools.
Right.
Which, guess what? They almost never make available to independent repair shops.
Wow. So even if I get a legit part, the phone itself might sabotage it unless the original company gives its blessing. That seems incredibly restrictive. And you mentioned proprietary tools too.
Yep, that's the other piece. Patented parts, special pentalobe screws that need unique screwdrivers, weird cable connectors. Plus, they keep the training manuals, repair guides, diagnostic software, all proprietary, under lock and key.
So it's a whole ecosystem designed to block independent repair.
Pretty much. It makes it incredibly hard, if not impossible, for independent shops to get the parts, the tools, or the knowledge they need to do the job properly.
It really sounds like a deliberate, multi-pronged effort. Keep repairs in-house where they can control the price, or just make it so difficult people give up and buy new. How does this hit those third-party repair shops, the local guys?
It hits them hard. These tactics are specifically designed to, as the review puts it, deliberately cripple the small, independent repair industry. Why? Because their existence, their ability to offer affordable repairs, directly challenges planned obsolescence and eats into company profits from new sales.
If fixing is easy and cheap, we buy less new stuff.
Exactly. And the source gives this really powerful anecdote. Nathan Proctor reported back in 2018. The CBC was quoted $1,200 to fix a laptop by Apple. Okay, $1,200.
Ouch. That's basically the cost of a new laptop for many people.
Right, but then an independent tech fixed it in under 2 minutes and for free.
Under 2 minutes. For free. Compared to $1,200. That's unbelievable.
It really highlights the disparity, doesn't it? The potential for price gouging versus the actual ease of repair sometimes. It shows the stark contrast in accessibility and, frankly, willingness to repair. It suggests a strategy to make repair seem prohibitively expensive.
Yeah. So what happens to those independent repair experts? What are their options?
It puts them in a really tough spot. They basically have two choices. One, struggle. Try to reverse engineer tools, source parts from questionable channels, constantly fight legal threats and software locks from the manufacturers.
Right.
It's an uphill battle. Or option two, give in. Merge with the big companies, become an authorized service provider, which might keep them in business, but it actually strengthens the oligopoly, it reduces competition further, and leaves consumers with even fewer options, often facing those inflated repair costs or just being told to upgrade. It systematically dismantles that whole ecosystem of local repair knowledge.
And it's not just about consumer cost or small businesses surviving. This whole disposable approach, not being able to replace simple parts like batteries, that has a huge impact on resources, right?
Oh, absolutely huge. This practice of using non-reusable batteries, non-replaceable parts, it directly leads to the waste of vital, non-renewable resources.
Hmm.
We're talking gold, silver, copper, platinum, aluminum,
With
cobalt.
stuff inside our electronics.
Exactly. Stuff
Okay.
that's dug out of the earth, often through environmental damaging mining, sometimes under terrible labor conditions. These resources are finite. Once they're locked away in a device that gets thrown out instead of recycled, they're essentially lost.
And that has knock-on effects.
Definitely connected to the bigger picture. Resource scarcity drives up production costs for new devices, which inevitably gets passed on to us, the consumers. Plus, countries that rely on exporting these raw materials face economic instability as resources deplete or prices fluctuate wildly. It's this cascading problem damaging the environment, destabilizing economies, and turning valuable materials into toxic trash way too quickly.
That ripple effect is clear. It touches everything from my wallet to global supply chains. And speaking of the environmental side, the sheer amount of electronic waste, e-waste, this cycle creates, it's got to be enormous.
Enormous is an understatement. The scale of the e-waste problem is genuinely alarming, and it's growing fast. Get this, in 2019 alone, the world generated 53.6 million metric tons of e-waste.
53.6 million tons.
Million metric tons. That data's from Tizio in 2020. To try and visualize that, it's like throwing away the weight of 350 large cruise ships every single year.
Wow.
And countries like the UK are among the biggest producers per capita of household e-waste. So this isn't just happening over there. It's driven by consumption patterns in developed nations. We're replacing devices way too fast.
And what happens to all this stuff? It doesn't just vanish. It's not sitting in neat piles somewhere, right?
Oh, definitely not neat, and certainly not harmless. When electronics end up in landfills, which most of them still do, they become a serious environmental hazard. E-waste contains a nasty cocktail of toxic stuff. Lead, mercury, cadmium, beryllium,
Heavy metal.
heavy metals, flame retardants, all sorts. And these toxins can easily leach out into the soil and groundwater, as Lotsa points out.
Contaminated water supplies.
It's exactly contaminating ecosystems, farmland, drinking water. This leads to serious health problems, neurological damage, developmental issues, various diseases in people and animals exposed to it. It's direct, dangerous pollution with long-lasting effects.
Okay, so are we at least recycling it properly? If it's that toxic, surely we're trying to recover it safely. Because if not, that whole creative waste idea just sounds incredibly destructive.
Well, the recycling rates are depressingly low. Fujisina reported in 2022 that globally, only about 16% of general waste gets recycled. 16%.
Only 16% of everything.
Yep. And for e-waste, the rate is likely even lower. It's complex stuff to dismantle, lots of different materials bonded together. Hazardous components require special handling. Extracting the tiny amounts of precious metals is costly.
So it's difficult and expensive to recycle properly.
It is. Which means most of it doesn't get recycled. It really drives home the point that creative waste is mostly just waste. All those valuable, non-renewable resources, gold, silver, copper mined, at great environmental costs, end up lost in landfills or incinerators, polluting the planet. It just compounds the problem of resource depletion.
And then there's this other angle, the so-called waste trade, which sounds ethically dubious, to say the least.
It absolutely is, and it's a really troubling aspect of the global e-waste problem. The systematic review talks about how wealthier nations, including the U.S., ship thousands upon thousands of tons of their electronic waste, often mixed with other non-recyclable materials, to poorer nations every year. Alves detailed this in 2023.
Why? Why ship it away?
Several reasons. Often it's significantly cheaper to export the waste than to build and operate proper high-standard recycling facilities locally. It also helps wealthier nations improve their environmental image out of sight, out of mind, reduces local landfill pressure.
So they look cleaner because they've shipped their trash elsewhere.
Essentially, yes. And sadly, it can even be profitable for some importers in those developing countries who might take the waste desperate for any income, despite the huge long-term risks.
This raises a really stark question, doesn't it? What are the ethics of basically dumping our toxic e-waste on developing nations? Countries that often lack the infrastructure, the money, the regulations to handle it safely. They didn't create this waste, but they're dealing with the poisonous fallout.
It's a massive ethical issue,
Yeah.
a profound case of environmental injustice. This practice directly benefits industries in richer countries by letting them externalize the cost and danger of their waste. But the price is paid by vulnerable communities in the receiving nations.
Who pays the price?
Often the poorest people, including children, who work in dangerous, informal recycling operations, trying to extract tiny bits of valuable metal by burning cables, soaking circuit boards in acid, all without proper protective gear. They're exposed to incredibly toxic fumes and substances.
Leading to severe health problems, presumably.
Absolutely. Respiratory diseases, skin conditions, neurological damage, cancers. It's devastating. Beyond the direct human cost, it poisons local water sources, kills wildlife, degrades farmland, and harms the entire community and ecosystem. It's economic gain for a few, built on the suffering of many and the destruction of environments elsewhere.
It sounds like a huge missed opportunity, too. If these devices contain valuable materials, couldn't we be investing in ways to recover them safely here instead of shipping the problem away?
Exactly. The review suggests precisely that. Given the sheer volume of e-waste, investing seriously in proper, safe, advanced waste disposal and recycling infrastructure could actually create new means for economic growth.
A circular economy approach.
Yes, a healthier, more circular form of consumerism. Recovering those valuable resources, feeding them back into manufacturing, reducing the need for new mining. It could spur innovation in green tech, create skilled jobs in recycling and remanufacturing, and make our resource use more sustainable.
So what about governments? Are they stepping up? The sources seem a bit critical, suggesting maybe a soft touch approach.
There's definitely a critique there. The review mentions, for example, the U.S. EPA's stated goal to reduce harm from U.S. exports of electronics waste, which sounds, well, a bit weak, doesn't it? Reducing harm, not stopping it.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a firm stance.
Exactly. The review argues for much firmer stances, backed by real, enforceable regulations. These need to push manufacturers towards genuine corporate social responsibility. That means designing for durability and repair from the start, taking responsibility for waste, and actively promoting reuse and proper recycling.
So making them accountable for the whole life cycle.
Precisely. Without strong government mandates, companies often lack the financial incentive to change. The path of least resistance is often just continuing the cycle of producing disposable goods and letting someone else deal with the waste. Stronger oversight is needed.
Okay, it's clear planned obsolescence has woven this complex, often damaging web impacting our wallets, society, and the planet. But what's the way forward? It sounds like regulation isn't just part of the solution, it might be one of the most powerful tools we have.
I think that's absolutely right. Regulation often gets painted as something that hinders growth or stifles innovation, but actually, smart regulation can do the opposite. It can create a level playing field, foster genuine innovation focused on durability and sustainability, and, crucially, protect consumers and the environment from these kinds of harmful business practices.
And we're actually seeing examples of this happening, where governments are pushing back.
We are, yeah. And they show that it is possible to stand up to powerful corporations. Sometimes it feels like they're untouchable, but policy can make a difference.
Give us an example, because yeah, sometimes individual action feels small against these huge forces.
Okay, consider Brazil's action on smartphone chargers. Remember the missing chargers we talked about? Well, São Paulo's Consumer Protection Agency wasn't having it. They fined Apple £2 million back in 2022
2 million, why?
for selling iPhones without chargers. They argued it violated consumer law because Apple was selling an incomplete product, forcing people into an extra purchase. BBC News reported on this. It was a direct government action saying, no, this isn't acceptable. It elevates consumer rights. That sets a strong precedent. And the EU has gone even further with their common charger law, right?
Right.
That seems like a massive deal.
Oh, it's huge. Truly impactful legislation targeting that mess of incompatible cables. By the end of 2024, all new mobile phones, tablets, cameras sold in the EU must use a USB Type-C charging port.
Everything uses the same cable.
Essentially, yes, for charging. And it extends to laptops by spring 2026. The European Parliament pushed this through in 2022. It wasn't easy. Manufacturers predictably argued it would stifle innovation.
But they got it done.
They did. because the long-term benefits for consumers and the environment were seen as more important.
And what are those benefits? I mean, it's just a charging port, right? How big a difference can it really make? It's much more than just a port. Think about it. First, massive cost savings for consumers. You won't need a drawer full of different cables or have to buy a new charger with every device.
My cable drawer size in relief.
Exactly. Second, less household clutter. But, critically, third, a huge reduction in e-waste. Fewer redundant chargers being manufactured, shipped, and eventually thrown away. The EU estimates it could save consumers $250 million a year and prevent around 11,000 tons of e-waste annually, just from chargers alone.
11,000 tons just from chargers.
Yeah. It's a really clear example of how smart, targeted government intervention can bring real benefits, accessibility, cost savings, and a significant environmental win. It shows policy can drive industries towards better practices.
So it's not just about identifying the problems, but actively building solutions. And the systematic review really emphasizes this. Okay, planned obsolescence boosted economies in one way, but the downsides are massive and need fixing. It's not about stopping progress, but maybe redefining it.
Exactly. The review concludes the way forward isn't just stopping everything, but revamping and fixing it. Finding a new balance between profit, yes, but also quality, safety, and longevity. It's about shifting from that linear take, make, dispose model towards something more circular, more sustainable.
And the review gives some clear recommendations for getting there. How do we find that balance?
Yes, it lays out several key areas needing action, and it requires everyone involved, governments, companies, consumers, to play a part. First up, much stronger government, consumer, and media accountability.
Okay.
Governments like the EU, regional bodies like CARICOM, national leaders need to create tougher consumer laws. Laws that force producers to use better, more durable materials, to design for repair, to make spare parts and manuals available, even if it means products cost a bit more upfront.
And consumers and media.
Consumers need to demand better, make informed choices, support durable products. The media needs to keep shining a light on these issues, highlighting the real costs of cheap, disposable goods versus the superficial value often marketed. It creates pressure from both the top down and the bottom up.
Okay, stronger laws, more awareness. What else?
Second, massive investment in recycling infrastructure and technology. This isn't just environmentalism, it's a huge economic opportunity. Governments need to mandate manufacturer compliance here, maybe through extended producer responsibility schemes, making companies pay for the end-of-life management of their products.
So they have a financial stake in making things recyclable.
Exactly. And investing in advanced recycling creates green jobs, recovers valuable materials, reduces landfill burdens, and makes our resource use more secure, turning waste back into resources.
Makes sense. And what about breaking that stranglehold the big companies have on repairs?
That's the third key recommendation. Stronger antitrust and competition laws. These are crucial to prevent a few dominant players from completely controlling industries like repair and stifling any competition. Regulators also need to scrutinize mergers and acquisitions more closely, ensuring big companies don't just buy up innovative smaller firms to eliminate threats.
So fostering a healthy market for independent repair.
Precisely. Allowing a vibrant ecosystem of repairers and innovators to thrive. That gives consumers more choice, fairer prices, and pushes the whole industry towards more repairable designs.
If we tie all this together, the big picture, it sounds like we're not just talking about small adjustments. It's a fundamental rethink of what innovation even means now.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing the limits and the deep harms of the current planned obsolescence model, and then, creatively destroying it in that Schumpeterian sense to build something truly better.
Better how?
Innovation focused on durability, on modular design so you can upgrade parts, on repairability, on resource efficiency. Moving away from superficial new features that don't add real value but just drive sales, towards products that genuinely serve us and the planet for longer.
So real progress, not just churn.
Exactly. This kind of comprehensive shift would ease the financial burden on vulnerable people, hold companies accountable for their creative waste, and challenge that core assumption that endless consumption is the only way to prosperity. It's about designing for longevity, equity, and genuine progress.
What a fascinating and honestly quite sobering deep dive today. We've really peeled back the layers on planned obsolescence, haven't we? Seeing how it's woven into modern consumerism, how it drove certain kinds of economic growth.
But it's such a staggering cost.
Yeah, a cost paid by consumers, especially low-income families trapped in these forced upgrade cycles, and a devastating cost to the planet, mountains of toxic e-waste, precious resources just gone.
But we've also seen the power of thoughtful regulation. how deliberate intervention focused on the public good can reshape industries for the better. It proves that durability and genuine innovation aren't mutually exclusive.
Absolutely. And that shift, it really requires accountability from everyone. Manufacturers need to step up and design products that actually last and can be fixed. Governments need to create and enforce strong rules. And us, the consumers, well, our choices matter. Demanding better, more durable, more repairable products makes a difference.
It really does. Our collective voice, our purchasing power, it sends a message.
So here's a final thought for you, our listeners, to take away as you look at the technology surrounding you right now. In a world where resources are finite, where social inequality is growing, what does it truly mean to innovate? Is it just about pushing endless cycles of slightly different products? Or is it about creating real, lasting value, genuine progress that benefits everyone and sustains our planet? And maybe ask yourself, what role can you play, not just as a consumer choosing what to buy, but as an informed citizen? How can you demand a future where our devices serve us longer, are truly repairable, and actually work for us and the planet?